and the new prototypes from Louisiana and Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota, last year to Guam, right? So this is a continuation of that. That was one of the first things that Trump did when he got in office, right? He started relocating about a dozen new B-52s to Guam. So the issue they are discussing, right? And so I posted in the back chat these stories about him considering nukes. So what they're discussing is whether they were armed, right, with these bunker busters or these low-yield nukes.
I'm sorry. So your sense is that this is part of an ongoing strategic exercise that may not be related to this specific Israeli-Iranian conflict. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
To my understanding,
Okay.
every 6 weeks they send them down an extra amount of bombers with this deployment.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
My thought is that even if that's the case, my thought is, what does Iran think about it? Because if we know about it, I'm sure they have enough intel to know about that movement as well. So I doubt seriously they're not looking at it as an escalation of that, okay, the U.S. is going to do this. And I think, like anybody would do, if you think that your house is about to be ran through or whatever.
Let me just get clarity before you go with the analogies. And I don't know, you guys, y'all need to work on the metaphors, but what do I know? But let me just say, so you're saying that the Iranians, that they will see this as a continuation of the exercise, or that they will see it as something new and threatening? I wasn't clear on.
Okay.
It was not clear.
Let me make it clear. I'm sure they've heard about this 2-week notice that Trump gave. And then after that, now, a couple of days ago, you did that. So now they're learning today that what we just heard about that information, that movement to Guam, which is a lot closer wherever. So they're moving these B-1 bombers, it sounds like, over to Guam. So my thought is, and none of us know, so we're all just throwing ideas out there. My thought is that Iran sees that, and I doubt seriously that they think that's not an aggressive move. That it's just to be intimidated and, oh my God, now Iran is going to say they should back up now. I think they're preemptively thinking now, okay, they're getting in position, because if they do that, even if they don't destroy with the first bomber, they don't destroy the capacity, it's going to have a pretty big effect on the psyche and the actual physical reality in Iran, over there, wherever that port, was it Porto, whatever that base is. I'm thinking they probably have some things up their sleeve that they probably are going to do, knowing that, hey, maybe America's real serious about acting on this. So they're going to play some cards. And I don't know what they are, but they're going to do something.
Yeah, I mean, there is some, I just want to share some reporting on it. I can share some reporting.
Theo, give me 1 second before you get a reporting. I'm going to be very brief. What they sent over is 6 B-2 Spirits, right? Not B-1s, sweet. And those are the only ones that are capable of carrying the bunker busters, right? And then they sent the supporting cast, refuelers, and everything else, right? With that being said, whether it's part of an ongoing transition that's already been happening or not, it definitely indicates that we're sending the specific planes that are capable of executing the only mission at hand. It looks like we're positioning for war, no matter how you put it. Like anybody else interpreting that differently, I would be surprised.
So this is here it is. I was gone. There's some reporting on this from the Atlantic. Iran bets Trump will blink first. Iranian leaders think they've cracked the code. Lots of threats, zero follow through. His unconditional surrender post makes headlines, but his real move was to kick the decision down the road with a signature 2 weeks delay. Tehran's gamble, Trump talks tough, but when the trigger's in reach, he flinches. That is their thinking, according to the Atlantic.
That sounds very true to the taco. You're familiar with taco, right?
No, I'm not.
Trump always chickens out, right? And that's what the world has been saying. They're calling him taco for that reason. And what you said aligns with that.
So my take is like similar to what the other cast said about, like, as soon as Trump got into office, he started.
Hold on for a second. Wouldn't that be like a smart thing though? I mean, just
Okay, so I don't want to. Let's not derail on Trump's psychographics. Let's kind of like focus.
No, that would just definitely be a smart idea, right?
Yeah, we
Nuclear
just
war is that is stupid, right? That's very psychotic, right? So I think anybody toying with nuclear consequences is a fucking maniac.
So when Trump first got into office, he started stacking up strategic bombers on Diego Garcia, which is in Guam. He sent a similar amount of B-2s.
No, Diego Garcia is in the Mediterranean. Guam is in the Pacific.
Is it?
Excuse me. They're not the same.
Okay, so he sent B-2s.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, CEO. They're not the same installation.
He sent B-2s to Diego Garcia when he first got into office. You're saying Diego Garcia is in the Indian Ocean.
Yes.
Guam is in the Indian Ocean, is it not?
Pacific.
Anyway, Guam is in the Pacific. Okay. Anyway, he sent B-2s to Diego Garcia as soon as he got into office. With the kind of story was that like he can touch the Middle East, like that he puts them there. He can touch the Middle East. So I don't think like sending B-2s over is like something that was needed to be done to be able to drop that massive ordnance penetrator, right? Like, I think that we already had the assets over there that we needed to drop that. And I don't even think that that's like signaling to the American people, like willingness to drop it on Iran or on Fordow or whatever. I think it's just a great story that the media picked up. You see the B-2s taking off and you're like, oh, Trump going over there to, join the war with Iran. I also don't think the U.S. gives zero fucks about stopping Iran's nuclear enrichment program. I mean, to me, that's evidenced by the last literally 40 years where we've allowed them to enrich at will, basically. I think that this is stacking up to basically degrade their ability to launch missiles and touch Israel. We found out in the last 2 weeks or so that the Iron Dome is not useful against these attacks. The Arrow 3, they've got 3 tiers of kind of anti-missile defense, and Iran has shown that they can penetrate all 3 tiers of that. I think that this is literally just to help Israel, because the main majority of Israel's strikes are not on nuclear facilities. They're targeting the launchers and the sites that these hypersonic missiles and drone launches and whatnot come from. I think we're just going over there, and if there's any strikes, probably we'll hit Fordow. But that'll be 1% of what we do, if you ask me. 99% of what we'll actually be doing over there is helping Israel degrade Iran's ability to launch these missiles.
Dr. A.G., what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's I don't really know how to read it. I think it could be as simple as quote unquote saber rattling, but I think it could also be something that exacerbates tensions. I haven't really decided how I think about it yet.
No, I think that's right. It's saber rattling until it isn't anymore, right? I think that's what it was.
Because I can't help but, I'm a pragmatist, right? So I can't help but think, okay, if the U.S. engages in any direct way, you have 2 you have now two big guys, quote unquote, teaming up against a little guy. And is that little guy gonna call their friends, like, help me? And what are the friends' reactions gonna be? And then what are the consequences of that? Like, this just seems like it has the ability to get out of control rather quickly, if we're not micro strategic about our engagement.
Well,
being the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most practical way of that playing out is that if Iran asked Russia for weaponry, right, and our stuff's being used on them right now by Ukraine, and that's not considered us being at war with Russia. So Russia very well may say they do the same thing with Iran. So I think that's totally a practical.
Actually, Russia did say that the other day.
Yeah, so Russia has troops already inside of Iran, right? They don't actually have formal military bases inside the country, but they do have their strategic bombers, right? Positioned at the various military airports run by the, Iranian IRGC or what have you. So I just wanted to make a distinction, but then y'all can get off of it or whatever, move on. Sydney was partially correct, right? That's been a new development in the last 12 hours out of DC. They are moving bombers as well to Diego Garcia. So this is dualistic positioning in the Indian Ocean as well as the Pacific Ocean. There are, Defense Scoop, which is a website of people who work for the federal government, who track federal government actions, military, civilian. They are publishing, right, with pictures of the specific nuclear strategic bombers that left Minot out of South Dakota, right, Air Force Base, and Louisiana, as opposed to just the strategic bombers, right, heading to Diego. And I'll post those links in the back.
As far as like escalation goes, I mean, I heard reports, this was like several days ago, of cargo plane 747 cargo planes that left China with Luxembourg as their destination. And as soon as they got about 100 miles from the Iranian border, they turned their transponders off. Also hearing reports that Pakistan is sending shipments of ballistic missiles, like their versions of the hypersonic missiles, the Shaheen or something. They're sending those over. The specific story that I read was that it's looking like, because Iran's launch sites are these mobile launch sites. So they're having these mobile launchers destroyed, but apparently Pakistan is replenishing them with these mobile launchers quicker than the Israelis can destroy them. And so the United States estimated that as far as these hypersonic missile capabilities, Iran only had about 1,000 to 2,000 of these. And the intensity with which they're sending these things over to Israel, they're having to completely rethink that. Either they're getting replenished quicker than they can shoot them, or they had way more than we thought they had from the start. So now estimates are saying they have upwards of 10,000 of these hypersonic missiles, or a ballistic and hypersonic missile mix. So, yeah, I think Pakistan definitely got Iran's back. China seems to have Iran's back. Russia and Iran seem to have signed some kind of 20-year mutual defense treaty very recently. I also know that Putin released a statement that says, we have thousands of nuclear scientists in Iran and they're not going anywhere. So it's kind of really gearing up to be potentially the kind of conflict everybody thinks it's going to be.
So when you're talking about the Chinese hypersonic, are you talking about those DF whatever things that they have?
I don't know about.
Is that what you mean?
I don't know, and nobody knows what was on
the ones that they tested 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, because that's kind of the thing is China. that's kind of the thing that like made me scratch my head recently, was finding out that we were way behind in the hypersonic missile game.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently China and Iran are like the preeminent hypersonic missile manufacturers, and they do it domestically. So like people are coming to Iran for hypersonic missile technology, and Iran is selling their hypersonic missiles on the international weapons market and whatnot. So like they're big players. Like, and we've seen in the last couple weeks, or the last a week at least, like their shit is no joke. Like those things move. And the thing that's so dope about them is that all they got to do is just tweak their glide path. That's what makes them so deadly, is that they're traveling so fast that when these like David anti-ballistic missile systems and the Arrow 3, they've come up with a firing solution, and they only have a limited amount of fuel to reach their intercept point. And so they're launched with a specific firing solution based on the glide path that they see this vehicle taking. And all the missile has to do is tweak its path slightly by a few degrees, and then 2 minutes later, tweak it another few degrees, and it's like they've escaped interception. These things are moving at like Mach 14, insanely fast. And, you know, if you get your firing solution wrong, or, you know, if the glide vehicle alters its path, like your interceptor just can't touch it after that. So.
Yeah, I read about that in, I think it was National Security Journal, like a couple months ago. They were talking about, yeah, I didn't know they were Mark 14. I thought they were like 7 or 8, but, well.
They range depending on the warhead that's attached to them, or the weight of the warhead. But like the Fatah 1, at least, is supposed to be the older version that people technically don't classify it as hypersonic because it's in question what its ability to actually change course and its glide path actually is. But the Fatah 2 definitely is hypersonic. People say they were launching the Fatah 1 in order to deplete the Iron Dome munition supplies, and then following that up with the more advanced ones that they threw. But I'm kind of rambling now. The Fatah 2 up to Mach 14. And China has gangster anti-ship missiles designed specifically to take out like carrier group assets and whatnot that are reported up to have speeds up to Mach 27. So like insanely fast weapons.
I guess the next thing we should look for is if the U.S. sends THAAD or Patriots to Guam, because that would mean they're expecting something from China. That's like our best defense against.
Yeah, they're trying to move like two of their big boys to the South China Sea recently.
I know they just pulled the Nimitz out of the South China Sea to head to the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
But that thing is like a bucket of rust. It's so fucking old. So, I also know the U.S. did just develop an upgrade to their, I think it's like their JDAM, their 2,000-pound JDAM, which is like a guidance package that allows them to, and these JDAMs are like $200,000 a piece, and I think this is kind of like where we're trying to focus our weapons capability in the future, is to get away from these like $20 million munitions, $10 million munitions. So they've upgraded the JDAM to be basically a ship killer now. So you can drop them from extreme height, 40, 50,000 feet, guide them down where they don't drop on the deck of the ship. They drop right next to it, penetrate 50 feet below water, and explode there. And that's supposed to be like guaranteed ship kill every time, not just like a burning ship you have to send back to port, but like sunk. So I heard that in like a Popular Mechanics article recently, and the defense establishment is supposed to be really happy about this as a counter to China and their buildup of like naval assets and whatever out there in the Pacific.
I feel like the hypersonics are the answer now to those big crafts, right? Those big vessels you see. Those are just basically sitting ducks because there's nothing to stop those things. So if you get your position, um, tight enough, they'll cut right through like butter.
I mean, another thing that doesn't look good for the U.S. is as soon as those hypersonic missiles started landing in Tel Aviv and Haifa, we actually backed up all of our assets that are in the Persian Gulf and in that region. We actually backed them up outside of what we think their known range is to prevent them from touching us. Like previously, up until that point, our ships were positioned where they thought was a safe distance. And so they've actually extended their distance away from Iran in order to get away from what they now know is like the new actual effective range of those weapons. Not saying that they won't push in closer or whatever if it comes time to like fight, but before they do, they're definitely going to try to, like I said, what I believe their actual goal is to eliminate their ability to launch these missiles, not to hit nuclear facilities.
Did y'all hear where Bill Clinton was talking about how Bibi was like 2 votes shy of getting reelected or impeachment or something like that? And that's when he launched that last attack?
I did see Clinton say that. Yes, Clinton's theory is that he did this to stay in power, and a lot of people think that, but it's very powerful that a former president actually came out and said that publicly.
So these things aren't conspiracy theories of big heads of states and presidents that's had relationships with this guy, for decades. He knows what it is. I'm just curious about like why so many Americans are kind of like late to that way of thinking. This guy wants to stay in power. This guy is, literally fighting fraud charges right now. He's a criminal. This guy is literally a criminal, and I hope Trump doesn't take his path, because if you're a wartime president, you got to stay in there. There is a way that you could stay in there. That's kind of interesting.
Well, the thing you have to be mindful about Clinton is he's older and he just doesn't care anymore. So he's saying something that probably no one else at his level would say publicly.
It's funny, the caption I saw in that video was like something like, it's funny what you're willing to say when you know the Epstein files got erased.
I'm sure somebody has copies.
Oh yeah, they got the Epstein file. We're just not going to release it for 50 years. They're going to wait till everybody dies, right? So that's all. It's just going to be the same thing as the JFK files.
Also, hey, happy Saturday. I've been in the conversations. But there's a podcast with Bill Clinton, and he's on his wife's podcast, and he talks about Israel and the conflict during his presidency and a little bit of history. And I found it interesting. But I was in and out.
What did he say? What did he say?
I don't remember, honestly. I have to listen to it again.
I'll put it in the chat. I think I got it.
You asleep? Yeah. What up, First Lady?
I just came.
What up, Kurt?
I was trying to figure out what y'all was talking about.
I was in Austin.
Hey, Petey.
Hey.
was lost in the sauce. That was
So, Patty, I had just read the announcement from the New York Times that the U.S. was repositioning B-2 bombers to Guam. That's what I read, and that's what we were talking about. And then we got off into the technology, who has hypersonics, how we defend against hypersonics, that kind of thing. Glad you're...
okay.
Patty, is that photo of you in Iran gathering some intelligence for us?
I mean, it makes sense to pre-position them in Guam because we have pre-positioned the warehouse there. We pre-positioned, we're trying to pre-position ammo in Micronesian Islands. And they're probably pre-positioning it just in case something things go wrong. So it makes sense for them to put it in Guam. That's where we have a smaller warehouse. It's a very small warehouse. And we were trying to use it for the Indo-PACOM area so it'd be quicker to get supplies. So yeah, it makes sense.
Does anybody have any thoughts on, like I heard some Israeli defense minister saying that they've got something planned coming up real soon that'll make that beeper shit look like daycare.
They did it earlier today.
What was it?
Yesterday, where they sent an emergency meeting for a lot of the top missile builders or scientists. They all met in a disclosed area, and when they did, they sent like a crazy ass bomb to kill all of them.
Oh shit!
Terrorism.
See, I've been talking to y'all all day and hadn't been in the news and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Iranians that are on like Telegram chats. And, yeah, that's where it's out. That's where they're talking. And there's definitely allegedly, they said there's going to be some big responses. And I think one of the Mossad leaders died today. Maybe coincidence? But there's been like a bunch of targeted attacks at a lot of these people's homes. And apparently he died. If there's any Israelis around. And another thing too, man, there's a lot of engineers and scientists in Iran, men and women. I mean, that's impressive how a lot of these scientists get killed, and there's one after the other that's like waiting for the opportunity to take, to take lead.
Yeah, I saw an interview. It was titled like the last interview that top Iranian nuclear scientist had done before he got assassinated. And in that video, he was basically saying like, we don't do anything anymore. Like we've trained up so many scientists and engineers and whatnot that like now we don't even do anything. Like it's them who are in control. Like they basically like they got this now. Like I'm retired. So I don't even know how true that is or whatever. But the gist was like, yeah.
It was like a huge convention, I want to say a few months ago, where like some professors from different European countries were, at like a missile, like a showcase that Iran had, basically saying, listen, we have so many different ones. These are a lot of our old ones, our old technology. They were showing a bunch of hypersonic missiles. So, they're ready.
I can't even understand nothing. You got a lot of noise in the background. Or is that me?
No, no, my fault, my fault. It's car. It's like 96 degrees. These Teslas a lot of shit.
Hello?
XRP is down.
What's XRP?
Everything is down. Gemini, what are you talking about?
Token.
Everything is down.
What do you mean?
That's it.
You still not cryptocurrency.
Why is it down?
War.
Yeah.
War makes an unstable market. An unstable market creates
Because of that recent shipment to Guam.
volatility, and debt means you lose money temporarily, at least.
Sometimes great time to buy stocks.
Yeah, you can look at it as a Black Friday. I just don't like looking at my portfolio right now.
Don't look at it.
I do. I log in, I log out. I don't trade because I already know.
Hey,
Sit on it.
Yo, ride for the long haul. Just look at it, right, First Lady? That's right.
That's nothing bad to look. It's bad when you sell and take that loss for real.
How's everyone doing this lovely Saturday?
Doing good, son. Doing good. How are you, son?
Good, good. I just left this food festival.
Oh, really? How was it?
It was nice. I ran into one of my good friends. I happened to walk in it, and what do I see? I see her and her son. So it's funny because I don't know a lot of people here, but I've known her since I was 15 years old. And she moved here 12 years ago. I moved here 3 years ago. And we happened to be at the same place at the same time. And I was shocked because she never comes to Brooklyn. So just another little dink. And she's here with her whole family. They're here from England, or I'm sorry, Spain and Florida, because her son is graduating on Monday.
Then it's not a
So anyways.
being. That's the world's
Yeah.
algorithm. It's the world's
Yeah. So her son, Javis, is super handsome. I'm gonna go see them tomorrow. Anyways, we had planned to do a barbecue for his graduation. So really excited about him. He's such a good kid. Man, she raised this man all by herself. Well, with her family. But he turned out to be such a good kid. And so, yeah.
Is that your dad
Fun
in your
times.
PPR, son?
That's my pops, yes.
That's dope.
Yeah. So, thank you. So yeah, another New York moment. Weather's great. Went to Trader Joe's, picked up some stuff. Now I'm headed home. Was in and out of this Israel-Iran conversation all day, but I was mostly out of it. So I'm gonna stay out of it. I'm gonna continue to stay out of it. But if anyone has some good recommendations for books, podcasts, drop them in the chat. I am trying to learn more about the situation. But yeah, I'm not liking what I'm hearing today. It sounds like we're inching closer to continuing this war. So.
Sin, so did you forget you're on Clubhouse? You don't have to be knowledgeable to talk about something?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. You're right. I do have a PhD in Israeli studies, if that's impresses anyone. A Clubhouse PhD.
I have a Clubhouse PhD too. Look at my name.
Yep. What's the Gemini plan again? Go in there, fuck shit up. Is that what CEO said?
No, the Gemini plan was if Gemini ever comes to Delaware, body slams me and shoots me in the leg, then I will drop kick him.
Okay. But you'd be shot and on the floor, so.
I was trying to understand how he's going to body slam me after he was.
I was trying to say something as nonsensical as the whole Samson option. Yeah, I did that on purpose, you know.
All right.
You know, since we're not talking politics right now, I'll ask y'all this to get a woman's point of view real quick. Because my daughter and I were having a debate, and she's telling me because I have a penis, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And we were debating in regards to...
Correct.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say
that. That's sexist.
That's also correct.
But we were talking about a lady that unfortunately passed while her baby was, I think, only 2 months, and then they forced the family to take care of the baby, and they kept her alive as an incubator.
She took the liver.
And she's totally against it. She feels like it's this exploitation of a woman, and that that there's a racial element involved, right? That basically they're kind of experimenting on her, and then forcing the family to bill, which that aspect I get the bill part, but I was thinking, and I can't speak as a woman obviously, but I was thinking if I was a woman, hypothetically, I would want my baby to live even if I couldn't, right? And I kind of agreed with the medical staff from that viewpoint, aside from the billing portion. So that was the debate.
Well, hold on, because it's not agreeing with the medical staff or disagreeing with them. There's a law in place, an anti-abortion law, that prevented the medical staff from, quote unquote, pulling the plug, which was the family's wishes. So I don't think the medical staff didn't really get into the ethical debate of it. It was more so they were trying to follow the law. It was considered they would have gotten sued under the abortion law had they pulled the plug.
No, I'm familiar with that portion, Sin. I guess let me rephrase my question. Do you agree with the law would be a better way to phrase the question? Do you think that that's right for them to keep her alive?
I do not. I don't think that. I think she's dead already. So the only reason kept alive is with the penis, right? Because of modern day science, she's kept alive. The mom's dead, the child dies with her, so it's not necessarily an abortion. So that's my sort of gripe with this, is that it's not that, I don't think my ethics necessarily even comes in the picture. Scientifically, the only reason she's kept alive is with modern day medicine. So this is a modern day problem. So it's like, to me, I don't even get into the ethics of it. To me, the mom's dead, the child would follow.
I'm so sorry. Can I explain the issue? Can someone explain the issue to me?
I'll try. So this woman was 9 weeks pregnant, and she went into a coma, and she was pronounced brain dead. And the mother, and I think at the time that the child's father, but don't quote me on
The
that
child's
part.
father also, you're right. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. Wanted her to be removed from the life support. But the hospital said, because of the law, I think this was in Georgia, because of the law in Georgia, that would constitute an abortion because the baby would also die. Because at that time, there was a fetal heartbeat. And so the debate was around the hospital's decision to keep this woman alive so that she could incubate the baby until the baby had reached a point of viability where it could live outside of the mother. So, of course, one line of argument is keeping the baby alive, it's preserving life. The other side of the argument is that the woman was not allowed any sort of autonomy in that instance, I guess is the word, right?
Well, what autonomy could she have?
Hold on. You asked for the explanation. Let me give it. That because the child depended upon the mother, it was the argument that Sin articulated. If the mother dies, the child dies, right? And forcing her to live under those conditions was inhumane. That was the argument.
Okay, but I just have a question. It's just a question.
Hold
Oh, I
on.
thought she was.
No, because I initially came off the mic because Jim and I asked for a woman's perspective and I was going to give mine. So my perspective is I am of divided conscience on this because I don't like this notion of women being forced to give birth, right? Because in instances like this, it is the immediate family who make a decision about whether or not to continue life-sustaining measures, right? And so that was removed from this family. My other thought on it, which is related to that one, is this is a lesson for us, particularly women, childbearing women, but everybody maybe, to create living wills and DNRs so that you can have your will, your wishes respected. But as Sin pointed out, this is also a conflict in the law because it takes that decision away from the woman. So even in the instance that this woman was alive and the baby was quote unquote threatening her life, right? There's no guarantee that she would be allowed, as we have seen in cases in both Texas and Georgia, to terminate this pregnancy because of these heartbeat laws. So I think there are a couple of issues that this case brings to light. So Gemini, that would be what I would say.
So there's an underlying issue here, though, that I just wanted to ask you about, Dr. H. How do we know the woman wouldn't have wanted the kid to continue on? Like, that, I don't know how we're getting into her autonomy. But yeah, that's my point. It's a 50-50, right? So how does her autonomy come into...
CEO, this is
but
what
the
I
thing
was
is that usually in these circumstances, it's the living relative, right? So the next of kin makes the decision on behalf of their relative. So you become the voice or the spokesperson for that person. And inherent in that is the assumption, sometimes false, that there have been conversations around this. So if it were my sister, I would know like what my sister's wishes are. So they come to me and they say, what do you want to do about this? I contemplate it, I talk to Jesus, and then I make a decision. So the debate is less around the woman's autonomy than it is around an institution deciding to take extra measures to sustain her life not for the chance that she's going to get better, right, and have an improved quality of life, but solely for the purposes of keeping a child alive.
CEO, look, she was very excited about having that baby. Very. She's a nurse, right? She already had a 6-year-old daughter, right? And she was going around trying to get medical attention because she was having, I think it was headaches prior to that,
Correct.
right? So she was definitely excited about it. So, in my opinion, from what I know of her, right, the limited things I do know of her, it would align with her being willing to still try to conceive if she's not there. And I also, and this is the portion where my daughter said I was being insensitive, because she already knows I'm very pro-women, pro-women's rights. I raised her to be the same, right? But this is where her pushback was. I don't think it caused any trauma to her or that she was put through anything, because she's literally brain dead. She doesn't feel or think. She's not there anymore. Her spirit has departed. You know what I mean?
But
So,
what about
Well, the only
possible
difference to that though would be, oh, I'm sorry, Patty.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only counter to that is the reason they performed the emergency C-section was because she started having difficulties. She's gurgling and having issues, and so they performed the emergency C-section. And I honestly don't know that we know enough about the brain to know when people stop experiencing pain. Never come back. Told us, right? So it's something that's it's an ambiguity in science as well. So I mean, I don't know. Go ahead, Patty.
Say, what about possible trauma to the fetus? The thing is, everybody want to save a baby, but they don't know what. Nope. Who's gonna take care of the baby? Or like what? Like your oxygen levels, are they lower? Like, does it affect the baby's brain? Does it affect its development? Like, they're saying that it's healthy, but they're also saying other things too. You know what I'm saying?
they monitor. One thing I do know is they monitor the oxygen levels. That's easily monitorable, right? They know that for sure. But for me, what would be deeper is the baby experiences everything that a mom experiences, right? Her emotions, what she eats, like everything that mom experiences translates to the baby. So I was wondering how that would impact her, because you're dealing with a mom that's not emotionally connected to the baby, that's not nurturing the baby, that's not interacting with other people in the way that a normal person would. So the baby's not hearing or experiencing any of those elements, and it makes me wonder if there will be any developmental issues later on that the baby would experience from that.
I mean, I still think that Dr. A.G. made the most salient point, which is who's making the call, right? If someone in my family had this situation befall them, knock on wood, it's an obvious tragedy, and my family said, let her go, and the hospital said, no, we've decided against that because, some whatever reason, whether it's law or some liability thing or something, I would be livid. And I think I'd be absolutely right to be livid. Like, Mexican should absolutely make this tragic, horrific decision. It should not be a matter for the state or a hospital or anyone else to decide on something like that. Especially when we're not talking about like a in the moment judgment call. We're talking about a long, what was it, months that they kept her on license.
Months, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. That has to be the family's call. It has to be. Like, anything else is completely inhumane. Like, we could have like a deeper ethical conversation after that. If you were the family member, what would be the right choice to make? And that's hard and complex, and it's not like there's a lot of history of it because medicine is the only thing making this possible. But like, to me, that initial question is very, very plain, and I don't think we can get past that without agreeing on that.
I think that's because with Roe v. Wade being overturned, that puts it back into the state's power to be able to make that decision, and they determined once they were able to locate a heartbeat on that baby that, you know, this would be technically air quotes in an abortion if they were to terminate her life and take her off of life support. So I mean, I get what you're saying. Who makes the decision? And even more so after that, who foots the bill? And even more so after that, who cares for the baby? Because you forced a life, now you forced a breathing bill onto somebody, and gave them. I mean, that has to be. It has to be a significant cost associated with them caring for her this long for months on end. You know, so that part doesn't feel fair at all.
But that's in line with the anti-abortion quote unquote philosophy, right? The value or the quality of life is considered like in fetal personhood, but once that person exists out in the world, there's no concern for maintaining any sort of general standard quality of life, right? We don't support children. We don't provide women who are, for whatever reason, not capable of on their own sustaining maternity, right? Which isn't just pregnancy, but maternity, the nurturing and caring for and mothering of a child. All the systems to support women are constantly being underfunded and minimized. So we're saying to women, keep these children, birth these children, but we're not offering them any sustained support to raise these human beings in any kind of humanitarian system of life support, right? So, I mean, I think these laws are consistent with that. Babies matter until they're born, institutionally and legally speaking.
That makes sense. I don't think they're going to keep the family on hook for the bill, from what I understand, though. I don't think they're going to be on hook for the bill. However, I think they are going to be the primary caregiver.
Yeah, and God forbid, as Patty was mentioning. Oh, sorry.
They are going to have to pay the bill.
Are they? Because
The hospital bill?
they're saying private insurance, and that her family is unlikely, and Medicaid.
So is a baby insured?
No, the mother's insurance. The mother's insurance initially. They said that's what they're going after.
Right.
What'd you say, Patty?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. You were breaking up at the end just now.
Your insurance doesn't recognize the baby till it's born, right? And then is there what are the additional fees that they're gonna have to pay? I don't know how civilian insurance goes, but I know some people say they have a cap, right? I don't know.
But there's also for some insurance companies, I'm not sure of the time, but there's a period of time where the child gets onto the health insurance in the event that, you know, when the child is born, that there are issues, then the mother and the child are covered. I can't remember exactly, because the insurance that I have, it works like that. And I don't know if I can't remember if it's like what is it, 38? I don't know if it's like 38 weeks. I can't remember.
Baby could be born at 38 weeks.
Yeah, so
I don't understand the
can't
question.
remember if it's like 36 or 38, where then the child gets written onto the coverage.
As soon as the child is born, it's automatically covered under the
Right. Yeah,
No,
when
but I
it's
think
born,
it is 36 that you're talking about because the premature wouldn't count, and then 36 and up, or is it 37 and up?
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember because in the insurance that we have at my job, they had that. So when you're pregnant.
Sorry.
So when you're pregnant.
We're talking about the lady that carried the baby.
Yes.
Right, we're talking about that. So I thought when you die,
Hold on for a minute, Sin. So, firstly, what I'm talking about is like, because I had to navigate this, and I can't. It's been a really long time, so I can't remember. But there is a period before the birth of the child where you put the child, you put the unborn baby gets covered by the insurance, because then it protects the child for birth complications. But I don't remember the exact weekage.
Well, when I used to
when
pay
that
claims,
happens.
when I used to pay claims and adjust claims, the child is considered still part of the mother until the child is born. Once the child is born, then the insurance automatically kicks in. Anything prior to the birth of the child is all covered as the mother. So,
But if the mother is declared dead, wasn't she declared dead?
See, that's the part that I was trying to get to. Where's that statistic? I mean, or where those details? Was she actually claimed as dead, or were they still keeping her alive?
They were keeping her. They were keeping her alive, but the conversation came up because when that happened, it was 9 weeks, and so, from my memory, that would have been outside of the time for the coverage. But I don't know. I don't know.
See,
I don't know if that's like a.
That's
It
the
depends
problem.
on what your insurance coverage is and how your policy is written, how that works. But I do specifically remember that from our first insurance policy. I just don't remember the time.
Let me dumb my question down a little bit for and make it more direct. If you ladies were, I don't mean dumb it down as in, like, I overshot my point is what I'm trying to say, right? I'm trying to, let me ask it this way. If it were you ladies and you were deemed brain dead at 9 weeks, would you want the child to still be born, or would you want it to die? That's what I'm trying to ask.
I would have wanted what God wanted. If I'm dead, the child's supposed to go with me. Period.
Yeah, don't keep me alive.
I third that.
And fourth.
Wow.
You know, I get what you're saying. I guess in your eyes, you're like, okay, I'm already dead. Why would I want my kid to be dead?
Right.
That's how you think of it.
Right.
Yeah. And you're entitled to think that way. And many women will think that way. There's probably a percentage of women.
I've heard a lot of women say the opposite of what y'all said. I've heard a lot.
Yeah, and I agree with that, right? Because people don't have the same mind. However, you know, because, you know, I'm a sci-fi person and I think towards the future, you know, what if I decided, you know, I wanted to donate my organs, right? And what if one day someone decides, hey, you can donate to be a carrier? So there's a scenario that people could just keep women's bodies alive just to produce children. How do you feel about that?
I don't like that. But look, let me explain to you this way, right? And it's not going to be the same. And let me just preface my statement with that, right? If it's me and my child, and I know that, you know, I have to go for that child to live, or I'm going to go anyway and keep me alive indefinitely so the child can live, it wouldn't even be a question. There's nothing to talk about. Like, keep me alive so the child can live.
But I think that depends on what your moral and ethical principle is, right? And everybody has a different grounding. So, like First Lady said, you know, there's a reason why women are given the primary responsibility for bearing children. And in considering that as a sort of the religious imperative around that, right? The nurture is my responsibility, and if for some reason I'm unable to fulfill that responsibility, then it ends, right? Like, that's just one perspective, right? But I think, how do I want to say? I think the idea that this being exists inside of a woman's body, and that the woman the woman does that labor, I think it orients women to think about it in different ways. It doesn't mean that all women are going to agree, but that experience of carrying this life positions a woman to feel a particular way about it. So, in the same way that women differ on their decisions to have children, right? I think women will differ on this. So,
Dr. Ag, let me go ahead and read some of the issues that this is some of the real world impact on her cases. So during the pregnancy, the fetus developed hydrocephalus.
syphilitis.
Syphilitis, okay. Right now there's future neurological and physical development that is going to be a problem, that could possibly be a problem for their baby. During the months that she was on life support, she had infections, metabolic changes, and hormone failures.
And hydrocephalitis for people.
Isn't it about to come
It's literally like hydrocephalus. Sorry.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I don't think she knows she's on.
So Melissa, her mom.
Okay, so hydrocephalitis is water on the brain.
Right. So remember they were talking about that. I think it was this month.
I'm very familiar with that.
It says, this case starkly illustrates the medical, ethical, and logistical obstacles. So there's an actual study of women that were women that this has happened to before, right? So 35 cases, but this was during the third trimester. And of the 35 cases, only 12 of these children survived.
So are you finished with the statistics?
Yep.
I think the details matter here. Usually I'm not into the details, but she's 9 weeks, which means that this embryo is very, very, very small, which means that the body itself has to do a lot to continuously form this. At this point, the forming of this embryo, or the continuation of it, is all manufactured. It's not of God. And it's something different, like if she was, 21 weeks, you got a lot more parts, and then it's like, okay, all we got to do is keep giving her oxygen and things. It really disturbs me at the 9-week period of time. This lady should have been way well gone. And the impact that it also had on that family. To see your child who was never going to come back still living here as if it was a machine. Just that thought alone is just weird to me. If a woman was in a car accident and they're able to get the child out and put the child inside an incubator, absolutely keep that child, do whatever you need to do to keep the child alive. But at 9 weeks, they couldn't even take the child out because the embryo wasn't even completely, informed yet. So that's why it's just like really kind of difficult for me to say in this particular essence within the details that keeping that baby alive was something of good.
And what Patty described a little bit ago, I didn't know, right? I didn't know it was born with those complications. And I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'm very familiar with that specific complication. They will never lead a normal life, even if they live, and most don't live.
Yeah,
right. And currently that baby has had, they said, so what it's saying is the brain hemorrhages. I guess the baby's name is Chance. So reported in Chance's case have been brain hemorrhages. They've been dealing with respiratory distress because of the lungs being undeveloped. They said this is going to be a longer than regular NICU stay because of some of the developmental delays in the organs and maturity. It's not even mature for up to the weeks that it should be.
Let me move the goalposts just a little bit, right? So if the baby, let's say it was 5 months, right, which means it's a lot more developed than 9 weeks, right? Would y'all still have the same sentiment as far as not letting it? Let's say 6 months.
So that's why I brought up the cases that said there was 35 cases. There were 35 cases. Matter of fact, I'm going to put it in the chat. They said there was 35 cases where, and they were in their third trimester, and only 12 of those children survived.
Mm. That reminds me of, as a breeder, right? And this is going to sound weird, compare children to dogs, but I'm going to do it. There are certain times when the mother gives birth and she nudges the baby to the side. And as a breeder, I've been breeding for a long time. I know not to try to save that pup and spend a ton of money at the vet because it's going to have some internal developments or underdevelopment that I can't see, but the mom senses. So it's not even worth saving at that point, as bad as that sounds, right? And it kind of sounds like that's what you guys were saying. Like it's already going to be so many issues that it's not worth seeing it all the way through just for that element alone, because it's not going to live a normal, healthy human life.
My thing is simply getting in the way of what God planned. If I was supposed to die, I was supposed to die, and the baby's supposed to die with me. Period. Like, you manufacturing something in a lab and then keeping this baby alive. The baby was born like at, what is it? I forgot. 1 pound or something like that.
1 pound.
Yeah, like, come on. I just think that's just, I don't know. I don't see the humanity in it. It just seems more like a science project. Let's see how we can stretch this. Let's see if we can really make it baby and all that.
I'm glad my daughter cannot hear y'all right now because she'd be on my head right now.
Yeah, this is